So in the first lecture, we talked a little bit about who the entrepreneur is and the entrepreneurial mindset. In this lecture, what we're going to do is we're going to explore some of the ways that you can explore your startup opportunity, or you can explore your business idea. And one thing that you need to know about entrepreneurship is it's not a linear journey. You don't just wake up one day with a great idea and then the next month you're $10,000 or $100,000 richer. It could happen that way, but it's not likely. There are stages of the process where you might get inspired, you might encounter setbacks. There are parts of the journey that require more work. There are parts of the journey that require more work and you're going to be really miserable about having to do it. Like taxes are not fun. Prepping for taxes is not fun. But it's all part of the process. And so this lecture, we're going to talk about that process and talk about some frameworks that will help you to identify what's a good opportunity and what you should maybe take a pass on. And so stage one of the journey is really what is inspiring you to take this leap. It might be that you have a great idea that you want to explore. You might have a need for financial independence, or you maybe, like I said, maybe you're that person that doesn't want to be told when to come to work, when to go home, when to go to the bathroom, when you can't go to the bathroom. And so maybe you want that physical or that financial independence. Maybe you just want a different life. One of the things that I value about what it is that I do is the flexibility that I have, that I can sit here and work all day and then go get my kid and take her to the park if I want. Or I can take a vacation and jump onto my computer and get some work done and then go and enjoy my family. And sometimes the reason behind your venture might be that you have skills that are portable. Accountants, marketers, people with social media skills, those are all opportunities for somebody to be an entrepreneur through their skill set and be portable at the same time. My accountant doesn't have to live in Oceanside if she doesn't want to. Somebody who's doing my social media for me can do it from Mexico. And so having portable skills is really a great way to inspire your entrepreneurship passions or your entrepreneurship interest. So the next step is really about developing your idea and researching your concept. The idea is whatever your potential product or service is. The market is who you're going to sell to. We refer to that as your target market. And a target market is really a group of consumers who have an unmet need and purchasing power. Note, they need both of those. They need to have an unmet need and they have to be able to buy your product. If you have a great product that nobody can afford or nobody can buy, you're still going to go out of business. And so you need to have both of those. And then the concept is really about how you'll make money. So taking a look at the concept is really about who you are, what you do, and who you serve. So what is the business offering? This could be your product or your services, whatever it is that you're providing. The target market, who is the business trying to reach with its offerings? The value proposition is really, why should customers choose your business over others? What makes you so special? What makes me special about, what makes my little vacation rental special? Well, if you look behind me, the beach is right there. And so that's one of the things that is a big selling point. That's why somebody's getting value by coming to my place, because they get to sit across the street from the beach and see it all the time. The revenue model is how the business will generate income. Sometimes you have one revenue stream. Sometimes you have multiple revenue streams. Maybe you have a revenue stream. Well, I can tell you mine. I have a revenue stream from people spending the night in my place. And then I also have additional revenue that comes from my cleaning fee. And so there's two revenue streams there. Some businesses might have a revenue stream that comes from shipping, and some businesses might have a revenue stream that comes from it's whenever you offer multiple services. So what is your revenue model? How are you generating income? Your business model is really about how the business will be structured and operated. And then how are you going to make money? What's going to make you profitable? I told you that I have a revenue stream that comes from cleaning fees. Well, it's actually not a profitable revenue stream because my cleaning fee is actually less than what I pay my cleaner. It's still a revenue stream, but it's not profitable. So then you need to determine whether your concept is viable. Is it feasible? Do all of the factors make sense? Is it something where you are going to be able to operate it consistently over a long period of time? Is it interesting? If you are bored by your business, you will ultimately lose interest and you won't be successful. You have to be really into whatever it is that you're doing because it's going to take up your life. And then, is there a beneficial financial return? Is it worth it for you to keep doing this day after day after day? So 3 important factors. And then you need to explore your resources. So what is it going to take for you to start the business? What licenses are you going to need to get? Are you going to need to get a business license? Are you going to need to get a reseller's permit? Do you need to file a fictitious business name statement with the county? So those are all little functional things that you may or may not need to do. How much money are you going to need to start the business? Like I said, you can start a business with $1,000. You can start a business with $100,000. You can start a business with $1 million. The leaner you can start it, the better, because you want to be able to have enough cash on hand to carry you through. It's called having a runway. And you want to make sure that when you start the business, you're not putting all of your eggs in the basket to get started. And then in 6 months, when you need to bolster yourself with a little extra cash, it's not there. So you want to make sure to start and operate as leanly as possible. Your operations are really about what it is that you're going to need from day to day, how you're going to get your product or service to market. Operations is everything from what time your employees show up to what it is that they do at work. To how you get your suppliers. And then there's your sales and marketing, and that's really about selling your products and communicating the benefit of those products and services to your customers. Next, you're going to put it all together in a business plan. And the business plan is really your roadmap to success. It's the clear description of your business's future. And it is a document that expresses what it is that you plan to do and the steps that you are planning to take in order to get there. Step 6 is to evaluate. Once you've completed your business plan, you need to identify, is this a realistic thing to get up and start doing? Are you being overambitious? Are you being short-sighted? Is there things that you probably should have thought about? And so the business plan, we say, is a living document because you have to make adjustments as needed. And then by this point, you've made your improvements, you've gotten your feedback, you've done a trial run, you've maybe made a prototype, and you can identify the value of the benefit that you're providing. You've got a target market. Now it's time for you to execute, and that's the launch. And so the next few slides, the next few slides, I'm going to talk about what we call the life cycle of a business. And we're going to pick up right when the business does, as it launches from startup to we're in business now. Okay, so this is what we refer to as the new venture life cycle. The pre-seed, so what I would say is up until you hit launch, you're kind of in this pre-seed. Sometimes it's referred to as stealth mode if you're not telling anybody about your business idea. But the pre-seed is where you've got your idea and you're developing it and you're determining its viability. Once you launch, then you're in the early stage implementation process. And so the implementation process is really when you are penetrating the market, you're first introducing your product. It's really when people are finding out about what your opportunity is or what your business is. And then you move to growth. And so this is when your business is really starting to pick up and you're seeing some success. Depending on the industry, growth may be in 5 months, it may be in 10 months, it may take a couple of years. And so the growth and the implementation, all of these phases really differ depending on what kind of industry you're in and what kind of business that you have. Once you've grown and people start to see what you've done and people are starting to compete with you, then your business goes from growth to maturity, where sales are going to kind of die down and you are at a point where you either need to introduce new products, introduce new services, or start thinking about, and you should always be thinking about how your business is going to be sustainable, but you need to really start thinking about what the long-term prospects of your business are. And then the late stage is when the venture is sold, either through to investors, through an IPO, that's an initial public offering, which is like when you go sell stock on the stock market, or through some kind of future growth. The late stage a lot of times is what we would refer to as harvest, and this is really the opportunity, your first big opportunity to get money out of your business. So you're harvesting your profits from your business in the late stage. And then when we look at the business life cycle, so there is, going back, the new venture life cycle and the business life cycle. The business life cycle you'll see is very similar. We just look at the seed phase is referred to as startup. And in the implementation phase, we have launch, growth, and maturity. And like I said, harvest is when you're looking to either realize some profit out of the business, either through sales or through investment. And then once you've harvested your business, and you don't have to harvest, by the way, you can have the same business for, you can start a business that you intend to be multi-generational. Look at In-N-Out hamburgers. That's a business that started in the 1950s and has stayed in the Snyder family since the 1950s. Anyways, after harvest is what we would refer to as rebirth. So that's really when you are either going to redesign your products, you're going to start a new venture, or you exit and you transition the business to the next generation. You retire. Some things that I will say is there are lots of entrepreneurs out there who love this process so much that when they hit maturity, they sell the business, then they start up something new. Those are referred to as serial entrepreneurs. So now let's take a look at frameworks. And frameworks are really kind of these ways to think about opportunities that help entrepreneurs structure ideas and actions. I'm going to talk about, I think, 3 frameworks in this lecture. I'm not going to go into in depth about them. I am going to add a couple of videos that will cover these in more detail just because I don't want to be drowning on and on and on and on. So the first framework is something that's called the business model canvas. And I really like the business model canvas because it kind of creates like a one-page business plan. It's very visual in nature. So if you're a visual person, it's really good for that. And basically it covers key partners, activities, resources, your value proposition, your customer relationships. And it helps you think about all of these things. Okay, what is it that, what's my value proposition? Well, maybe my value proposition is to create hyper caffeinated coffee. I'm going to have my regular caffeine and then I'm going to inject some more caffeine into my coffee. Well, what's the value proposition of that? Well, the value proposition is by drinking this coffee, you're going to have a lot more energy than you would, and maybe you only need to have 1 cup instead of 5 cups. So maybe that's my value proposition. Okay, well, who is going to be a partner that I'm going to need to get that product to market? Well, I'm going to need a coffee bean supplier, and I'm probably not going to make caffeine out of thin air. So I'm going to need somebody that's going to supply me with caffeine. And then my key activities is really going to be combining the coffee and the caffeine together. So that's kind of how the business model canvas works. It's a really great low stakes way to kind of work through a business idea and determine whether or not on the fly, if it's something that really you should continue to develop. I'm probably not going to develop my hyper-caffeinated coffee idea. The lean model canvas is a spin-off of the business model canvas, but it introduces a customer feedback loop for continuous product or idea development. So it's got a lot of the same elements as the business model canvas. It just has a couple of different factors that focus more on customer relationships. And so if your business is going to be kind of more service driven rather than product driven, you might want to go with a lean model canvas rather than the business model canvas. I will also post a video that identifies, that kind of highlights the similarities and differences between the two. And so if you wind up doing one of these for one of the course assignments, you're definitely going to want to take a look at that. And then we have design thinking. And design thinking is really basically a method of thinking that was started in the 1950s, I think, but it's still used pretty largely today. Intuit is really big on design thinking as a company, and there's a company called IDEO that's big on design thinking. And so it's empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. So the empathy phase is really where you are trying to understand the user experience for your product or service idea. What is it that they're going to do? What are they going to feel? Who are they? The define phase is you're identifying the core problem that you're trying to solve. The ideate phase is where you're going to generate as many creative solutions as you possibly can. So this is a business concept where you're starting really with a problem. What is the problem I'm trying to solve? People have problems waking up. Okay, well, what are all of the ways that I can help somebody to wake up in the morning? Well, I can introduce my hyper caffeinated coffee. Maybe I can create an alarm clock that when it goes off in the morning, it emits a smell of coffee. I don't know, but that's my generating solutions to the problem, or my ideation phase. So once I've got this problem that I'm trying to solve and I've ideated all of these different potential solutions, then I'm in prototype development phase, where I'm going to start thinking about the prototypes that I'm going to create. And so maybe my prototype is an alarm clock that when the alarm goes off, it emits a coffee aromatherapy thing. It's a combination of aromatherapy and coffee. It's a really great idea. It's really not, but if you decide to go with it, go for it. And then the testing phase is when is really the trial and error of testing potential products or solutions and then gathering feedback and using that feedback to make the product better, to make the design better. And so that is the design thinking process. Empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test, and then back through the process again. So ideally, you want to choose the framework that you're going to use based on the type and stage of your venture. Design thinking works for problem solving, all right? The business model canvas and the lean model canvas work when you have a specific type of business or a specific idea in mind. And once you have completed and once you've been through your framework, then you have to start thinking about how you're going to bring this concept to life. Setting goals, assessing resources, getting timelines together. And each of these different types of frameworks is going to call for a different action plan. And it's important to know that your action plan isn't a business plan. A business plan is a piece of paper. It means nothing if you don't do anything with it, okay? And so you always want to have a piece of your ideation and your research that's really about execution. How am I going to make this happen? Frameworks are tools. You use them to structure thinking, not to limit your creativity. When you use each framework, you use design thinking for ideas, you use the lean model canvas for early stage ventures, and you use the business model canvas for strategy development and development of action plans. Frameworks support different stages and goals. So again, you're going to want to make sure that you choose the best one for your venture. Also, remember that no matter what your product or service is, you have to give it to people and make sure that it's something that people are going to buy. And you want to give it to people who are going to poke holes in your idea. You want to give it to people who are going to be honest with you, because that is going to be the difference between having a good product or service and a great product or service, or a product or service that doesn't work out. So you want to make sure that you don't skip giving folks a trial run of your product. You want to listen to what they say, and you also want to make sure that you manage your money effectively. And we're going to talk about that in a future lecture, probably like 3 lectures from now. So just in some concluding thoughts, I didn't say it yet, but I think it's important to know that business and entrepreneurship, what we're doing here is not an academic discipline in the same way that English or philosophy might be. Business is a set of tools. Some of those tools are technical, like accounting, and some of those tools are tactical, like strategic thinking. And so the frameworks that I've just talked about in this lecture are tactical in nature, in that they teach you how to think strategically about the opportunities that you want to explore. And so as we move through this course, you are going to learn the technical tools and the tactical tools. You don't need to be good at all of them. I am not good at all of them, but you do need to know how to use them, and you need to know when you'll need to rely on others in order to get your business done. And so that is frameworks for you. Like I said, I'm going to add a couple of short videos so that you get a better introduction to at least the business model canvas and the lean model canvas, because I think that those two are particularly helpful to student entrepreneurs.